welcome to my channel. Welcome to today's video. Today's video is going to be the opposite of the video that I did a few weeks ago, and I'm going to be pretending that someone is telling me I need to declutter one palette from every brand that I own. So I have 19 palettes here. I'm going to go over my reasoning for them. Maybe the formula is not the same, or maybe I just didn't have another option because I liked the other palettes better. We're going to get all into that. So if that sounds good to you, make sure you give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't yet. I would love it if you stuck around. But with all that, I have 19 palettes here. So let's just get started. All right. So the last video was where instead of decluttering one palette from each brand, I was able to keep one palette. So you would think that this video would be a little bit easier because in this make-believe world, I'm decluttering less, but it actually was harder because I don't want to get rid of any of these. I wouldn't want to get rid of any of these. I try not to keep around palettes that I don't like. I declutter a lot spontaneously, so all these palettes made the cut. They're still in my collection and I don't want to get rid of them. We had some tough choices here. Last time I kind of had like a strategy since I was keeping palettes. I really tried to make sure that they weren't just my favorites, that they were filling the hole in the collection that I would have. And this time I kind of just went more with my least favorite or the other ones I just liked better. So I'm not going to go in any particular order. I'm just going to start grabbing for them. I did only pull palettes from which I have 3 palettes or more from the brand. So if I had less than that, it's not taken into consideration. But that's enough. Let's just get started. I'm going to start pulling. We're going to start with Lisa Eldridge. I have all 5 of her palettes, and the one that I would declutter would be the Muse palette. So it looks like this. Not only do I have this palette over and over again in my collection, I actually, when I did a video on this, and any videos on these palettes will be listed down in the description box, as well as all the makeup that I'm wearing, of course. In this video, I even said that the formula seemed so much different than the other 4 palettes. I don't know what it is. I hit hard pan on quite a few of them. You can even like still see there and there. They're kind of a really creamy formula, so it's not like I can just take tape and pick up the hard pan. It's really annoying, and I have the hardest time with this palette. Like this one has like almost no pigment. I have to really rub my finger in, and even then, it's just not a lot. This palette, like this is one of the ones where the formula just didn't live up to the other Lisa Eldridge palettes, and because of that, I would declutter it. Now, sticking with just small palettes, I have Charlotte Tilbury. This was also tough. I have the Pillow Talk quad. I picked the Fire Rose as the one that I would keep. So that left me with 2 limited edition ones, Star Aura and then Celestial Pearl. I decided to go with Celestial Pearl. And the reason is because Star Aura has 4 of this like baked shade. They're all shimmers. It's hard to see with the reflection, but this one has 1 baked shade and then the rest are kind of just her standard shadows. I would prefer to have a quad. Here's the baked shadow, and you can see just like how reflective and special that is. I would rather have a quad with all 4 of those baked shades than this one. The color stories are so similar. Charlotte Tilbury's a little bit kind of like Pat McGrath. I don't think we talk about it as much, but her color stories can get a little bit repetitive. So that's why, I mean, if I had to, I'd get rid of that one. But I do like having this one in my collection, and the outer packaging is really beautiful. Since we touched on Pat McGrath, let me put the small palettes aside and let's just go into Pat McGrath. I wanted to stick with a mothership. I didn't want to just like take the easy way out and pick one of the quads or something like that. I wanted to make it a little bit more challenging for myself. So the mothership that I picked is Divine Rose. I saw some other people who did this video. They also picked Divine Rose. It's not that I don't like this palette. I do like this palette. I was so excited when this came out. It was so beautiful. It was kind of like the really first start, I think, of cool tones when we were seeing more cool tone palettes. And now looking at this, I wouldn't really consider this a cool tone palette. It's funny how that works, but that's what first drew me in. And this is a stunning, stunning shade. It's actually one of my favorite Bliss Astrals. I picked the Midnight Sunset or the Midnight palette with the purple. I picked that as the one I would keep. I should remember the name. And it has a shade similar, but this one's even more sparkly and glittery. It's stunning. This one is just a little boring, quite honestly. It's a good palette, but the other ones are more unique. I have the one with the green shade, the Sublime, the Subliminal with the blue. So this one just doesn't make the cut as far as Pat McGrath palettes, unfortunately, even though like I would want to keep it. I'm going to go back to small palettes now, and we're going to go with my K-Beauty. This is one of the Take the Mood palettes from Peri Para. I have 4 of them. I picked the Beautiful Rose as the one I would keep, and I would pick the Whisper of Milky Springs as the one I would declutter. This is actually one that's kind of on my chopping block. It's not that it's bad, it's just maybe one I could realistically live without. This is not one you would have to really fight me for. I'd probably give this up. Like if my sister wanted this, I'd give it to her, no problem. It's a little bit just like meh. The pinky peachy tones are very light. It's a K-Beauty palette, and the other ones that I have, I like the shades more. Peachy's just not my favorite. I like pinks, but peach starts to lean into that warm territory, and I'm just not about that. So that one could go. And then the last 2 small ones I have are one of my Rowan quads. So I have 52 Degrees, 1111, and Gold Lust. I think this is an obvious choice. Gold Lust is the warmest of the 3. And this one also doesn't really have one of those really textury kind of creams. It does here, but it's less so than the other 2 quads that I have. And it has more creams, like these really creamy kind of metallic-y ones that you kind of have to really rub your finger in. So this would be the one that would be also an easy declutter, not one that I'm really super attached to. I'm going to keep it. I like it enough to keep it around, but this would be the one that I could declutter. The Chanel quad, however, like this one was tough. I have 7 or 8 Chanel quads, I'm not sure, but I had to go back and forth and really decide which one I could part with. And I ended up going with the, what is this, 747 Mediterranean. This was a limited edition palette. Most of my palettes, I'll be honest, from Chanel are limited edition. I just gravitate more towards those and get FOMO a little bit easier, if I'm being honest. This one's all baked shades, and they're beautiful. They're bronzy neutral goodness, but it's the least exciting from Chanel, I think. I could never part with any of my tweed ones. I have the Ombre de Lune. I love that one, and it's very similar to this one, which is why I ultimately went with it. So not a bad one, but it just, unfortunately, it doesn't make the cut. Now for ColourPop, let's go into that. I picked the Flutterby palette, and really the reason for this one is because I have the Making Mauves, and I like the Making Mauves more than this one. This one has a pressed glitter in it, so that was an easy decision. This one could go. Odens Eye, also easy because I'm considering decluttering this palette. I just don't want to break up the collection, and I need to decide if I'm over that or not. But it's the Hey Reindeer palette. A lot of people didn't like this, myself included. To me, this is not a winter Christmas palette. I would even dare to say it's kind of a spring palette. If you took away the background, I bet this would be more of a spring color story with these like lighter shades here. I found the color story confusing. I found the mattes not as great as some other Odens Eye mattes. The shimmers weren't great. It's more just the not cohesiveness, if that's a word, of this palette. I just don't like it. I don't know what it is, but I have to agree with everyone else. It's one of my least favorite Odens Eye palettes, so that can easily just like get out of here. Let's go into just another negative one, super negative, and then that way we can stick to the more positives. For Ace Beauté, if I haven't said it before, let me say it again. I didn't like this collection. I didn't like it at all. Again, like also kind of on my chopping block, I have 3 of the flower collections. It was my first time trying the Ace Beauté brand, and I was not impressed, unfortunately. I don't know if it's a fluke. Let me know down below in the comments. if there are palettes from Ace Beauté that you love, let me know which ones, because maybe I'll try them again, but I'm not in a hurry to. I picked Cala because it's the most neutral, like, okay, you can go. I don't really need you. The other ones are a little bit more interesting, and I have neutrals over and over in my collection, so I would never reach for that one, and it can go. And now we'll like go more into a positive. Positive in the fact that like I still like these palettes, negative because I have to declutter them. Glaminatrix. I love, love, love Glaminatrix. I have the Nearly Natural, I have the Rich Romantic, I have Fairy Lights, I have Sugar and Spice, I almost forgot, and then I have Into the Night. I debated between this and Sugar and Spice. Sugar and Spice is not bad. The color story is just like a little bit off to me, but ultimately the shimmers won out in Sugar and Spice. This one is a little bit more work, I guess. You have brighter colors in here. You have more textury shimmers, not the same Glaminatrix shimmers that I'm used to, like in the Rich Romantic or the Nearly Natural. This has kind of like those flaky shimmers, not all of them, but some of them, like Top Shelf that I keep pointing at. So this one could go. I do really, this is like my favorite kind of neutral brown shade, which is sad, but I have other neutral browns. It'll be just fine. And another really sad one is Unearthly. I had a hard time. This is like a newer to me brand, and I've just fallen head over heels in love with them. Ultimately, I'd have to go with Fall Magic. I kept the Dreamer palette as the one I would keep, and there's just no way I could get rid of Sorceress Smoke, so it came down to Fall Magic, unfortunately. Love these shimmers here. I like the layout of this more than Sorceress Smoke. The shimmers are kind of like scattered, where this is like a row of mattes, a row of shimmers. I really like that. But unfortunately, the other two are just my favorite more than that one. I still love that palette though, a lot. Gloss Gods. New neutrals. It's too warm tone, so it beats out the other ones as far as which one I could get rid of. This one also has kind of like this textury shade, which while it's stunning on the lid, kind of just more of a pain. So if I'm gonna have to make this decision on which palette I would declutter, it's gonna go down to just ones that are easier to use or the ones I'm gonna keep. This one could go basically just for this shade and because it's a little bit warmer and I prefer cool tones. That's really it. That's what it came down to. I love all the Gloss Gods palettes and I highly recommend them though. Cosmic Beauty was a little bit easier. I'm not super attached to this palette. I like having it and I would not, it's not even on my chopping block. It's the Winter Wonderland palette. Just this one I knew because I like the other palettes so much more. I have Muse, I have Delicious Delights, which is a surprising favorite for me, Gothic, and then this one. This one's just super blue and I don't wear blue all that often. I like the purples in here, but kind of like these teals are more what I don't reach for. Surprising because I like green a lot. You would think I'd reach for teal over blue, but I would rather go in with like this blue shade than this teal shade. I don't know what it is. That's just what I gravitate towards. But this was an easier one for me. Not my favorite color story from them, but I do really enjoy this palette. It's really nice and you can't beat out Cosmic Beauty's formula. You really just can't. I'm gonna go, let's segue a little bit into some mainstream. Just get these out of the way. For ABH, I went with the Soft Glam palette. You're gonna notice a theme here. I picked the Nouveau as the one I would keep. Soft Glam can go. I'd rather keep the Sultry. I'd rather keep the Norvina. This is the most warm tone palette that I have from ABH, so that's why this one's gonna go, because I gravitate more towards cool tones. Same with Natasha Denona, as much as it would pain me because I know there's a lot of people who didn't get their hands on this palette, and I only picked up this palette because it was limited edition and I didn't want to regret it, even though it's not one that I reach for often. I would have to declutter Metropolis due to its very warm tone. Like this shade here, like this row column, right? Down is a column. This column is super just the warmest of the warm, and I have a hard time when I try to really push myself to reach for this palette. I can make it work. Like, there are definitely shades in here that I like. I like the greens. I do like the creamy matte formula. I know some people don't really like that formula. I don't have a hard time with it. It's really just the color story. And again, I didn't want to take the easy way out, pick like a mini palette, like the Mini Love or something like that. I wanted to challenge myself and pick one that would be a little bit harder. And it would be this one. I like the other ones better. I even grappled with the Xenon, but that would like serve a purpose in my collection and I would want to keep it. This one, I think I'd reach for the least amount. So Metropolis is gonna go. And I have one more mainstream. It's Huda Beauty. I chose the Rose Gold palette, mainly because I just couldn't get rid of the other ones. I actually really like this. I mean, this is her first palette, well, the second version of it, but the other ones that I have are Rose Quartz, which is what I chose to keep, and then Pretty Grunge, and I can't get rid of Pretty Grunge. It came down to the two of them. Head to head, Rose Gold lost. I don't hate this palette. Like, this is a warm tone palette that I like. It's definitely very pink, and that's, I think, what's going for it, because at least they're pink warm tones, not like red orange warm tones. I like this one a lot. It doesn't look very well loved because I'm pretty light-handed, and I have to admit, like, I haven't maybe reached for this as much as I should have, but I like this one a lot. However, it doesn't beat out Pretty Grunge. Pretty Grunge for sure would have to stay. Rose Gold has to go. Ensley Rain. Ensley Rain's also a newer to me brand, just like Unearthly. And boy, was this one hard. This one, I had to like be honest with myself. I have the Groovy Garden, which is the one that I chose to keep. I have Lands of Enchantment, and I have the Cold Moon. And this like breaks my heart. I picked Cold Moon, even though I like gasped when they showed this color story. It is so beautiful. I wish I could like swim in these colors. I love it so much. It's just like some other palettes that I've already mentioned. These shimmers are kind of a pain, and I like things to be quick and easy. I want to get it done. Sometimes I don't mind taking the extra time, but considering half these shimmers in this palette are like these very, very textured shimmers, I would have to let this go more than Lands of Enchantment. I was kind of thinking it was going to be Lands of Enchantment, but I'm going to be honest, I wore it today. That's what's on my eyes right now. And I just couldn't get rid of that palette. It is so beautiful, and the shimmers are more that smooth shimmer, which you do have in here. Like, this one's one of those smooth shimmers, this one, but the rest of these, so 3 are just normal. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of them are textured. And that's the main reason I really don't want to do it, but I just had to. And then the very last one that I have to talk about is Lethal Cosmetics. So I picked the Midnight Serenade, that would stay. And the one that's gonna get decluttered is the Night Flower. I think this one was tough as well, but I think that I would use this one less than Wildflower. Wildflower is very, very bright, so it was like back and forth, back and forth. This one's just too dark. I tend to reach for lighter shades. I want brighter stuff on my lids. I don't want to go full on smoky all the time. And this one's just a smidge smoky, even though I like the tones in this more. I just wish that we had added like some more white to these shades and made them brighter. And then I would pick this palette, but of course it's called Night Flower for a reason. It fits the theme. I'm not mad at that. But I just like the other ones that I had more than Night Flower. So this is one of those situations where it just came down to process of elimination, and this one ranked last. But that's all the palettes that I have to talk about today. I would love to know just your thoughts down below. Do you agree or disagree with my selections here? This is all in good fun. Luckily, this is not a real life situation. I get to put all these palettes back in my drawers, but I would love to know what you think, which ones you would declutter if we have some of the same brands. But this is where I'm gonna leave you all. I hope you're having a great one, and I will see you in my next video. Bye, everyone.